As quilters, there are parts of the process we absolutely love because we're really comfortable with it. It's fun, it's our favorite. Other things, maybe not so much. Well, this is that for me, and it comes down to quilting labels. Sometimes it can be a challenge, but I have a solution for you, and I think you're really going to love it. Personalized quilt labels, templates, printable. Oh my gosh, it doesn't get any easier than that. Come on, let's go. Let me show you. Quilt labels are an important addition to your quilts. You want to tell a story, you want to give some historical information because quilts last a really long time, and whomever receives this will enjoy seeing that message from you, see your name, see the date, and anyone else who looks at it will understand what this quilt is about and what it was for. And I think that's really special over the long term, obviously. And there are multitudes of ways to add a label. Now, I have in the past, many years ago, just taken a simple Sharpie and written on the back of my quilt after it was already quilted. So any ink that would bleed through hit the batting and not the front of the quilt. Now, I don't recommend that, and it's not the best way to do it, but it was quick and furious. I needed to get it done, and I knew the recipients would understand. So that's that. Now, what I do prefer are the labels. You can buy pre-printed labels that you fill out and, do whatever you want to do on it and just attach it. But what I have done is I created my own printable labels so I can text, put the text in that I want and then allow space to sign. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. Here's a page of labels. And what I have, this is a free download for you. I'll include this down below. I'll also put a link up above so you can see the post, and it explains all of this in detail, how the process works. But essentially, you'll get multiple pages of labels, and you'll get this page with text and without. So it'll just have the design. And then that way you basically get a blank label, and you can write in what you want. So what I do is I print this on printable paper. Have you used that before? Oh, it's wonderful. Now, I'm not talking about the transfers. There are transfers you can print on, and essentially it's a plastic sheet that you iron on to t-shirts and things like that. Don't do that. They wash off. If you saw the pillow tutorial that I did, I showed you one of my blank pillow fronts that got washed away, unfortunately. That's when I figured out which product to use. I use inkjet printable fabric, and it comes in sheets of 5 and 12. I've even seen them in 3. This particular brand isn't available anymore, but I put a link below for one that you can find on Amazon, and it is an inkjet printable fabric. The key is inkjet because you're using an ink. You don't want to use anything that just lays color on the surface as opposed to ink which saturates the surface. And that's really important because this won't wash off. Ink is permanent. It's going to stay there. And you get pages that are just like a printer sheet, 8.5 by 11, and it has a paper back. So you put the fabric in on the printable side, and that way you've got a beautiful printed label. And what I've done is I've created sheets with 4 labels per page, which is a easy way to, have a nice size. And as I said, you can get it without the text. So if you want to write a longer message, you can certainly do that. But this is a great way to do it. So what you do now is you're going to print these out, and we're going to work on them. Now, there are multiple things you can do. The first thing I do is I cut. Now, I put these lines on the paper. It's on the printable copy so that we get them nice and even because you want a bit of a margin around everything. When you're setting up your printer, you want to print it at best quality. Don't use normal or draft. Reason being is you're going to get a darker print, and that's going to show up better. It's going to be a nice crisp line on your fabric. The other thing is, this is a set that I have for half square triangles. So I created some half square triangle patterns, and you can see they're in different sizes on the page. So if I put these close together, see how there's a wider margin here than here? When you set up your printing properties on your printer, hit the best quality, but you also want to hit fit to page. You want to have it be larger. If you do the fit to page, then you're going to get about a 1/2 inch margin. If you don't, it's going to scrunch it up a little bit, so you'll get smaller labels. If you want smaller labels, that works fine too. You can certainly do it this way. But if you want the larger, use fit to page. And that's one of the, one of the selections you can make in your printer properties. So just a little technical advice there, because I couldn't figure out initially why I was getting 2 different sizes. That is a trick that I have since figured out on printing JPEGs, PDFs, and things of that nature. So anyways, this is another set I wanted to show you, and then check out the hearts. Are these not too cute? There's a set of these as well, and they all come with blanks as well as printed. That way you can go ahead and put in whatever information you want to write. But let me show you how I mark on these labels on the pre-printed fabric. So here are some labels that I printed, and I've just taken my Sharpies, and this is what I use. You can buy the microns, and there's some other fabric pens, anything like that that has ink. Permanent ink is what's critical. And because Sharpies are easy to buy in a set of multiple colors, that's just what I go with. And so what I do is I just use my marker and I go over the lines. So I've already done the stem. I'm going to go ahead and I just cover the line, and you know, it's just like coloring, you know, the adult coloring books. Hopefully you can stay in the line a little better than me, and then just color that in, and I'm just going to kind of make it dark down the middle, and I'll probably go over it with a lighter pen. And I'll do the same with the flower, you know, get a couple petals colored in here, but see how easy it is? This fabric takes on color really well, and it's kind of hard to do this a foot away from my face. I can't really see, but anyway, so you get the idea there. And then I come in with a Sharpie. Now on the smaller print like this, I leave it as it is, but with the larger ones, especially with this font, it makes it really easy just to go over the letters, just like that. And we'll follow this one and this one, and like I say, hopefully we can follow the lines and come around. So this makes it very, very simple. This fabric is easy to work with in that you can write on it, you can print on it, and it behaves just like fabric. Now one thing I do want to show you here is when you first get it, if you try to pull it apart, it doesn't want to come apart easily. You get a little bit of paper to the back. So what you do is just take a warm iron. Only use a warm iron on this fabric because it can scorch. And put a warm iron across the top. I put it on a synthetic, so it's less than wool, and I just run the iron over it for 10 or 15 seconds, just so the fabric is nice and pliable. So let me go ahead and do that, and I want to show you how easy this comes off. Okay, so I pressed this from the top, and look at just how much easier that it just peels right off. And now it's just like fabric. It's wonderful. It's just when the paper is on there, it keeps it sturdy, so you can work with it, you can cut it, you can write on it. And then once you take the paper off, it's just like a piece of fabric, which is wonderful, and it will fray. If you get pieces that are hanging out, rather than pulling them, go ahead and just cut those pieces, because you don't want to get any raveling going on at this point. If you choose to leave a raw edge later, that's fine, but at this point I wouldn't want to do that. One other thing about using the Sharpies or any of the ink pens, I would recommend heat setting it. So let it dry. It takes maybe 15-30 seconds for that ink to dry. But go ahead and run your warm iron over it. It doesn't take a lot of heat, but that heat will just help embed that ink within the fibers of the fabric. See how it goes through? And that's what we want. And this paper is awesome because it'll pick up any extra and it won't bleed onto anything else that you're working with. So I love this stuff. And yes, I will get a small commission if you buy it with my links, but you can buy it in a lot of different places. And if you have local stores that sell it, if you go to like Joann's or Michael's or Hobby Lobby or any of those places that have coupons, use coupons because you can get it, get it pretty cheap that way too. But I just order mine online because it's easy and it comes quick, and I've kind of gotten spoiled with getting things at home. I'm not being sponsored. I'm just sharing products that I really like, and that makes this whole process so much easier. Okay, so we have our labels and we've colored them in, and I'm going to make labels for the rag quilts that I made a few weeks ago. And this works out really well. It's such fun to do, and it looks great on the back of a rag quilt. First, what I want to show you is how I attach all this. So we're going to go back to our pillow. So what I've done is I have 2 layers of fabric because this is the rag edge. I'm going to make a rag edge on my label. The first thing I did is I removed my label from the paper and I placed it on my top layer of fabric, and I just did a zigzag. This is going to hold it in place, and that just makes it easy for me because when I go to sew this onto the pillow, it's all taken care of. Now, in all practicality, it would have been a better idea to do this before I finished the pillow, but I was in a hurry to get the video done, and I didn't want to do a whole thing on labels at the same time, and it just ended up this way. So, plan accordingly, and there are ways that you can put your label on at a more timely manner that's going to make it much easier. You can absolutely quilt over this. So if you put your label on the back of your quilt, when your quilt sandwich is basted together, you can go ahead and quilt right over this and then do your binding and you're fine. What I'm going to do though is add this to my pillow. Now, 2 things. I also use another product simply because I've done a lot of raw edge applique, and I really love using an adhesive on the back of my fabrics. And after trying multiple different variations, this is what I came up with. Now you can see I use a lot of it. I've got the big box, but Steam Seam too. And I'll put a link for this down below as well. This is a product that comes in a sheet. It also comes, well, actually it comes in 1/2-inch pieces. Have you ever seen the hem tape that comes in a 1/2-inch strip? That a lot of times is the Steam Seam. The difference with Steam Seam and Steam Seam 2, the 2 means it's a double layer in that it will adhere to both sides of what you're working on. So you have this really thin film in between the 2 layers of paper, and I can't even separate it with my fingernail. It won't even come off. But it's not unlike what is used on the back of fusible interfacing. What's great about this is one piece, it comes with 2 pieces of paper, hence Steam Seam 2. And this piece just pulls right off. This is the side that it will stick to your fabric. So you're going to take your label and put this right on here, and you just press it down, and it's going to stick. So then what I could do, I'm not going to do it now because I have more to do with this label, but you just pull this little film, I think you can see this, and it's just really, really thin. Can you see that thin layer? It's actually, quite transparent. And you just pull this off and you have an adhesive piece. So here's what we do. At this point, once this is attached, just press on. We don't have to iron it because a finger press is going to hold it in place. Then we're going to take this off, the backing off, and just pull it all the way across, and this is going to adhere to the label. Then what we do is take this piece and we are going to attach that to our base fabric, and that just holds everything. This is probably an unnecessary step to take, but I like the fact that this is going to adhere right to my fabric before I even start sewing. So I have the steam seam. Now it does stiffen it up a little bit, just like it would for interfacing, so you can decide whether or not you want to do that. But I like the extra stability it gives, and it holds everything together while I'm sewing, and that just makes things so much easier. I also use a piece down here, and what I want to show you is this holds really tight. I mean, I just put a little piece in the center to hold it where I want it to be, and this isn't coming off. You see how tight that's on there? This stuff is great. Now, a couple things. You cannot use a hot iron on the front of this because you can scorch it. Steam seam too needs a hot iron to adhere. So when you're attaching it to fabric, put your label side down, and I will put a towel or something underneath it just to absorb some of the heat, and then just press it from the back with a hot iron, about a good 10 seconds. And that'll set the glue really, really well, the adhesive, and then you're going to have an easy time of sewing this. It's just going to hold everything together well. The other nice thing about this is you don't get glue in your needle. Have you ever used a product where the glue will actually fill the eye of your needle as you're sewing and the thread gets sticky, the needle actually gets a layer of glue on it? That does not happen with this product as long as you use a hot iron, because it's the hot iron that's going to melt it from the form that it is by itself to actually fuse it to the fabric. Once it's fused to the fabric, then you're good. You're not going to have a problem. So all this is in my blog post that I've put online, and I've got those links. But I just want to show you how much fun this is and not get into all those details. So we know how to do it. We have the process down. We color it, we adhere it, and then we're going to sew it on. I do a quick, when I'm doing 2 layers like this, I'll do a quick zigzag around the edge. It holds these loose edges because as you're sewing, just like any fabric, it's going to ravel. I have this attached, so now all I have to do is open up my pillow and come in and just sew around this. And that's how I get this wonderful look on the end. So it's really quite simple to do, but I want to show you a couple other ideas. These are fun for rag quilts, and it's a very easy, simple method. A few minutes ago I showed you my half square triangle labels where the top has little patterns. Well, the idea behind that is you can color them in. I love this fabric. If you've checked out my Charm Square pattern series, it's the one that's been on sale for $9, and it will be until I finish the e-course. So if you think you're going to want it, now's the time to get it. It's at a very good discounted price. But I love this Abbey Rose fabric, and see the easy quilting. This is another tutorial I've done. I just feel like I'm pushing you to all these other tutorials, but this is sort of a culmination of everything coming together, which is really awesome. We bind it with multiple fabrics, which I show you how to do that. We quilt it with wavy lines, which we use a walking foot, and now we're going to put a label. And this is another way to do it. Is what I do is I put the label on 2 sides of, I put the binding on 2 sides of the label. So it's already colored, it's ready to go. And then what I do is I stitch it on with the buttonhole stitch, and then I just hand stitch the whole thing to the quilt. But before I hand stitch it, I put a piece of my steam seam under here, because that's going to hold everything down. I'll cut it about 1/4 inch short of the seam binding, and then I'll press this on from the back side. I'll press this on to the quilt backing and then leave it on there and just hand stitch it, which is perfect. This comes out really, really well. I love it. Now, here's another one that I think you're really going to like. Check out the Christmas labels. Oh my goodness, this is another rag quilt style. But how fun is it to do the Christmas trees as a label? There's so many different options of what we can do with making our own labels. And look at these adorable quilt labels. Oh my goodness, they are so sweet. And when they're colored in and surrounded with a pretty bright binding on the backing, it looks fantastic. I love these. And this is the half square triangle bundle. And check out these sweet little hearts. Oh my goodness, it's so much fun. And it comes with or without the print, so you can, do your own thing. You can draw around the edges. One of the things I thought would be fun, actually, if you like embroidering, is doing some fun embroidery stitches around the edges and then right in the middle. And there's a lot you can do. It's just fun to kind of take a creative direction with quilt labels instead of just doing the same old thing. Definitely do download the free quilt labels. There's a fun selection in there. You can get started with it. There's some directions. There's a lot of material in there to read. I pretty much hit most of it in the video, but these are fun. And I'd love for you just to try one and let me know what you think. And get your quilts finished and put some labels on there. All right, no more excuses. We're ready to get our quilts finished completely now. Thanks so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. It's always my pleasure to be here with you. Have a great day.